What if the anxiety you're seeing isn't just anxiety by itself? What if the child who doesn't want to go to school, who melts down before transitions, who always seems a little bit on edge, or who just asks questions over and over and over again, isn't just worried, but is overwhelmed by a world that seems unpredictable, uncontrollable, and just difficult to manage? Because autism can seem like anxiety, and anxiety can be layered on top of autism in a way that makes both difficult to recognize. So in this video, I want to help you understand the difference, and more importantly, help you recognize when your child is experiencing anxiety, but may really be experiencing something that may be a little bit bigger than that. Because when we misread autism as just anxiety, we can end up supporting the symptom while missing the underlying need underneath it. First of all, let's be clear. Autism and anxiety absolutely do overlap. You can have some symptoms of anxiety that are very, very close to symptoms of autism. And adults tend to notice those. They tend to notice the outward expression of anxiety and autism. So let's break down a few. The child who asks questions over and over and over again. The one who seems always timid or rigid or just not sure about what's going to happen next. What if they don't want to go to school? What if they melt down before something new happens? What if their change in routine causes them to just have a super temper tantrum? All of these things are what it looks like from the outside, but we need to know what it looks like from the inside in order to be able to tell the difference accurately. And sometimes that's true. But what we may not be seeing is fear in the traditional sense. What we may really be seeing is sensory processing overload. We may see language processing overload. What you may also see is a difficulty with transitions and an insistence on sameness. These may look like anxiety, but these are also characteristics of autism. So if we're looking at it just from the outside, it's very difficult for us to say which one is the other. We really have to get underneath the hood to find out. Are they masking? Are they exhausted? Or is this part of what they're dealing with as a part of their condition? Is this just the way their brain works? So yes, anxiety may be present, but autism is giving us the answers as to why does it show up now, when does it show up, and how it shows up. So let's walk through a few examples because this distinction matters. Let's say a family decides to take a different route to school, or the child has a substitute teacher, or they just change plans that day and they just have to go to a different classroom for whatever reason. What you may see as tantrums, you may see constant question asking, you may even see physical symptoms like sweating, nervousness, or even an upset stomach. But what you're really seeing here is not just generalized anxiety. You are seeing that predictability be broken. And in children with autism or people with autism, that is a signal of unpredictability, which can send them into a frenzy. So although it may look like just generalized anxiety, what's really going on is that the attempt to gain control of one's environment, which used to be the same, that which used to be routine, and trying to keep it all together, is now falling apart. And in an attempt to keep it together, that overwhelm starts to show, that breakdown starts to show, and you start to see that they just cannot keep it together all day. So the distress isn't random. It's connected to uncertainty, no or lack of predictability, and just not knowing what's coming up next. Example 2. They keep asking the same question over and over again. When do I have screen time again? Is grandma coming over? How about Pops? When will he get home? He's coming at 4, right? He's coming at 4, right? He's coming at 4? That may sound like reassurance-seeking, which is often associated with anxiety, but it's really them trying to get predictability back into their routine, trying to understand what's coming up next. And it may not just be anxious types behavior. It may be that they're trying to organize what's coming next in their head. That's how their brain works. That's how they are hardwired. That is their sensory processing. So it's not just that they don't know what's coming up next and they're fearful about what's happening. If they don't know the answer, they're just going to have a meltdown just because they're anxious. But it's really because that's how they're organizing the patterns. They're really big into patterns, organization, and everything fitting neatly into a logical sequence. So if they can get an answer about what's coming up next, even if they asked it 3 or 4 times, they should be okay. If you just remind them, we've talked about that already, usually you can go ahead and move on. But somebody who's truly anxious is not going to be able to move on, and you'll continue to see those symptoms of fear. Example number 3, they don't want to go to school, parties, or social events. Now, adults may assume that they're just socially anxious. They just need to push through it. They're just a little bit shy. And while all that may be true, there's a little bit more going on up under the hood. So they really might be experiencing something like repeated or past experiences of not socially connecting with those that are at the party, constantly being corrected for something that they do that may not be socially appropriate, the lights, the noise, too many people. It could be sensory overload. There are a number of things that may not make them comfortable in a social situation. So it's not anxiety per se, because it's actually based in a true and real fear and not something irrational that doesn't exist. It's based on past experiences with people and feelings that they've had where things didn't go as they expected, they misinterpreted a social cue, and they just don't feel comfortable going back into that situation. One of the biggest mistakes adults make is stopping at the label. They see a little bit of distress and they start thinking, oh, you're just anxious, don't even worry about it. And that's it. But why is it happening is a much, much better question. So when you look at it and you say, oh, I see. They have difficulty with the social part of it. They misinterpret the cues. Oh, I see. They're overstimulated. It's too much going on. The lights are too bright. It's too noisy. That smell is too strong. Oh my goodness. This breaks up their routine. They usually do this at that time, but instead we have to go to this particular party or social event. The reason that's a better question and it leads to better answers is because you can do something about those things. You can give them tools that will set them up for success in future events so they get better and better at being able to deal with it. If you just stop at anxiety, all you're going to do is try to fix and calm them down in the moment. But that does not deal with the underlying issues. By asking why, and why is this so hard, you get those real underground questions that help you get to real underground answers. And those can help to bolster their skills and their overall sense of well-being. So by choosing to ask why instead of just saying, it's anxiety, just calm down, it leads us down a totally different intervention path, one that actually can lead to some success. Here are a few signs that look like anxiety, but have an autism component underneath it. Sensory overload. There may be too big of a crowd. There may be too strong of a smell. The lights may be too bright. There may be just too much going on. You have little bells here, and you have ribbons here, and you have colorful lights flashing off to the side. You got glow sticks. It's just too much going on. So it may be that they are just overloaded with sensory activity and not they just don't want to be there. Also, unpredictability. You may not know how a person might respond to you saying hello. You may not know how a person might respond to a joke that you made. You may not know how to respond to a joke yourself. So those past experiences that you had with not really getting the social cues or having a little bit of social ambiguity starts to come back and say, oh, this happened the last time. You better check yourself or you wreck yourself this time. And a lot of times that looks like anxiety as well. What if it may be language processing? You may come out and you might say something to somebody that comes out one way, but they hear it a totally different way. Or they may say something to you in one way and you may take it in a totally different way. So having those things happen is not because you're just anxious or you have an irrational fear of somebody stepping on your shoes or clowning your outfit. It's really rooted in you having difficulty understanding language and using it in a social way. And that causes a little bit of friction between you and those people at the party, which makes you not want to be there. So when we start to look at some of the symptoms and how they overact and interact with the anxiety, we can start to see, I see how these are kind of working together. So it's not like it's not anxiety at all. they definitely do interact with each other, but you can also see that the anxiety can bolster those symptoms of autism to make them look almost overwhelming. So calming them down won't help in that situation. But once again, if you have those tools that you can give them to use in those social situations, maybe even scripts for jokes, maybe even scripts for responding to people, scripts for responding to greetings, it helps ease the anxiety. So now you're just dealing with how the brain works and how they're hardwired, which is much easier to help out than just saying, oh, you need to calm down and hope that they get over it. So what do we do with this? Now, the goal may not be to just calm them down. Because they're having autism processing overload, the goal is to understand what's happening and give them the tools to help mitigate it. So, for example, you can increase predictability. Talking about those scripts again, talking about giving them an idea about what's going on, a social story where you may go through a script of what happens to somebody else who has gone to the party. They've gone through it successfully, and you guys kind of walk through it together. It's almost like visualization in sports. If you want to hit that jumper, you want to hit that game-winning buzzer beater, you have to visualize it first. You have to see it going through the net. This is no different than going to a party successfully and not becoming overwhelmed when things don't go exactly as planned. You have to visualize it, and then you can go ahead and carry it out. Another thing you can do is make the invisible visible. So if there are things that are innuendos or there are things that are a little bit under the radar, you want to make those clear. You want to say, hey, look, some people have this inside joke at this particular party. If they say that, it doesn't mean this, it means that. So now they can at least replay that, and when they hear it, they know how to respond with whatever script that you gave them. Laugh, ignore it, or walk into the other room. Also, giving them practice on calming themselves down in case something does not go as planned. We know that a lot of difficulties that children and people have on the autism spectrum is when they experience that sensory overload, is that they have a hard time calming themselves down before they go to 10 and sometimes lose control. So giving them the scripts about it's okay. Count backwards from 10. 10, 9, 8. Self-assurance, reassurance, giving them those things. Maybe even they have something they can keep in their pocket that comforts them. They can just reach in really quick, a fidget spinner, their favorite toy, whatever the case may be. These are not crutches. These are tools. Eventually we get to a point when we may not need them at all. But in the beginning, we want to give them success so they understand what it looks like. And then you can start to fade the supports so they can do this on their own. So giving them the tools to work through it, and not just saying, hey, you need to calm down, you just need to relax, and dealing with the anxiety portion will work wonders when you're trying to get somebody used to going out, being in a social situation, and navigating that social situation successfully. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's that not all anxious looking behaviors are anxiety. Sometimes the behavior is trying to communicate things to you. Something like, it's too bright in here. They just laughed at me for what I said. Oh my goodness, I was supposed to do this at 3:30, but now I'm here. What happens when I don't do it? So when you're looking at those and you're thinking it's just anxiety, you're going to deal with it as if it's just anxiety. So you're just going to try to calm them down. But when you stop asking, why is it anxiety? And you start asking, what about this is difficult? That can help you to develop the interventions, because then you can respond more compassionately. And when you can respond with understanding, then it can lead to much better success and much better interventions. If you're a parent of, if you provide care for, or if you work with somebody who's on the autism spectrum, hopefully this gives you a different lens to look through about their anxious type behaviors. So if you still have questions or you want to know more about anxiety, ADHD, autism, learning, or behavior, continue to check out our channel and look at the different playlists and videos we have there. And if that doesn't help, we have tools such as our Behavior Bootcamp for Parents, as well as freebies that we have on our website, and even linked down in the description below, such as our Function Behavior Cheat Sheet that will help you identify what is the cause of the behavior so that you can develop effective interventions. And also, if neither one of those are successful, you can always contact us directly for a free consultation. So, if you found this information interesting, make sure you like, hit that subscription, and definitely share it with somebody else. And if you want them to keep them coming, you have to do nothing else but this one particular thing, and that is stay tuned.